We all know Malaysia's story is one of incredible economic success. But as our cities reach for the sky, you gotta wonder, who's actually enjoying the view from the top? Okay, let's really get into this. You've seen this picture or one just like it, right? Gleaming modern towers right next to homes that feel like they've been left behind. This isn't just a photo, it's the perfect picture of a paradox playing out all across the country. We're getting richer as a nation, but are we getting more equal? And that brings us to the most important question of all. We're on the fast track to becoming a high-income nation, which is fantastic. But is this prosperity a high-speed train that everyone gets a ticket for, or are a whole lot of people being left behind on the platform? So let's first try to understand the scale of this paradox. What do the numbers actually tell us about the gap between the haves and the have-nots in Malaysia? Okay, looking at the data, it's kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, let's give credit where it's due. Malaysia has done a pretty good job reducing inequality over the last 50 years. That's the good news. But progress is kind of stalled. Our Gini index, which is just a fancy way of measuring inequality, is sitting at 39. Now compare that to the average of 30 for the high-income club we want to join. We're still lagging pretty far behind. So what on earth is a Gini index? Don't worry, it's way simpler than it sounds. Just think of it like a score from 0 to 100. 0 is basically paradise, perfect equality, where everyone earns the exact same income. 100 is the total opposite. One single person has all the money in the country. So the lower the score, the more equal a society is. Simple as that. All right, we know there's an inequality problem, but to fix it, we have to know where it's really coming from. And this, my friends, is where the story takes a very unexpected turn. For decades, for as long as most of us can remember, the whole conversation about inequality in Malaysia has been framed as a story about the gaps between different ethnic groups. That single idea has shaped our policies, our politics, and how we see each other for a very, very long time. But what if that's not the whole story? Not even close. And boom, here it is. This is the moment that changes everything. The data from a huge World Bank study just flips that old narrative on its head. A massive 87% of income inequality in Malaysia happens within the same ethnic groups, not between them. Let that sink in. The biggest economic divide isn't between a Malay and a Chinese person. It's between a rich Malay person and a poor Malay person. It's between a wealthy Indian family and one that's struggling. If this breakdown is giving you a clearer picture of Malaysia's economy, hit like and subscribe so you'll always stay ahead on the biggest issues shaping our future. So if it's not mainly about race, what is it about? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is simply where you live. Your postcode matters a lot. The income gap between the richest states and the poorest ones has stubbornly refused to shrink over the last 20 years. Where you're born in Malaysia can have a massive impact on your entire life. And when you put those two things together, the within-group inequality and the location factor, you start to see exactly who is most affected. The data points to one group in particular, Bumiputera communities in East Malaysia, in Sabah and Sarawak. They face a double whammy of challenges, leading to the lowest average incomes in the whole country. For them, the path to a better life has been incredibly slow. You see, the real story is so much more nuanced than the headlines suggest. So how does this inequality become so deeply baked into our society? Well, a great way to think about it is something called the opportunity ladder. Imagine everyone's life is a climb, up a ladder. But the problem is, we don't all start on the same rung. The gaps, they start right from birth. A child from a poor family might not get the same quality of healthcare or nutrition. That's a broken first rung. Then comes school. Are they going to a top-tier school or one that's underfunded? That's another rung. After that, do they get the skills that companies are actually looking for? And finally, do they have the connections to land a good, high-paying job? At every single step, a small disadvantage gets bigger and bigger until it's a massive income gap by the time they're adults. And this leads to a really sobering reality. People get stuck. Just look at these numbers. If you're born into the poorest 20% of families, there's a nearly 60% chance you'll stay poor. And if you're born rich, there's a 64% chance you'll stay right there at the top. It means that for way too many Malaysians, the lottery of your birth pretty much determines your destiny. That ladder is very, very sticky at the top and the bottom.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty grim, I know. But here is the good news. This is not an unsolvable problem. The same report that lays out the problem also gives us a clear toolkit, a set of smart policies that can help us build a much more inclusive country. Let's look at the way forward.
The strategy basically comes down to four big ideas. First, enhance opportunities. That means investing in people, especially with high-quality education right from childhood. Second, strengthen our social safety net, making sure that financial help actually gets to the families who are struggling the most. Third, address those geographic divides we talked about, with policies made specifically for places like East Malaysia. And finally, the big one, figure out a fair way to pay for all this. And that leads us to the billion ringgit question, doesn't it? This all sounds great, but where does the money come from?
Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is subsidy reform. Right now, we spend a fortune on things like blanket fuel subsidies. But here's a catch. These subsidies often help wealthy people with big cars way more than the poor. The World Bank estimates that if we just targeted these subsidies better, we could save up to 2.5% of our entire GDP. That's tens of billions of ringgit every single year that could be used to invest in our people instead.
Another key is making our tax system work better. The proposal suggests that by making some smart reforms to personal income tax, especially for the highest earners, we could generate at least another 2.5 billion ringgit a year. This isn't about punishing success. It's about creating a fairer system where those who've benefited most from our economy contribute a fair share to build opportunities for everyone else. Thanks for watching. To be part of an informed community that gets clarity on complex topics, tap like, hit subscribe, and let's keep making sense of Malaysia together. And this really gets to the heart of it all, summed up perfectly by the World Bank. Investing in people isn't just a charity case, it's just smart economics. When you give everyone a fair chance through better education and skills, you're not just creating a fairer society, you're creating a more productive one. You get a stronger economy for everyone. It turns out helping people isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do.
So, at the end of the day, we have the diagnosis and we have the prescription. The roadmap to a more prosperous and more equal Malaysia is right there. It's going to require some tough choices and bold decisions for sure, but the payoff is a future where every single Malaysian, no matter where they start, has a real chance to climb that ladder. The question isn't what should we do anymore. The real question is, do we have the will to actually do it?